Welcome back to Math 058. We're looking at section 4.6 in this video, which is solving percent problems using equations. So last lesson we looked at using a proportion, that A over B on the right hand side for amount over base, and on the left side the P over 100. Notice here we also have an A and a B, but we're using R. So let's take a look at the pieces. The R is the rate or the percent as a decimal number. You could use a fraction as well, but usually when it's set up like this, you're using a percent to represent, or a decimal number to represent the percent. Then you still have your base, the number we are finding the percent of, and the amount A, or the part of the base, the part that that percent represents. So again, we have three variables, so three types of problems. For our type 1, our amount is unknown, so we're given the base and the percent, which again we can turn into the rate. So for example, what is 65% of 800? So again, what is, so our amount is our unknown. So R times B equals A, since they put what is first, we just flip-flop the sides. So our amount is equal to 65% as a decimal is 0.065 times 800 as the base. So for this one, all you have to do is a multiplication to get the value of A. For type 2, we are missing the B base. So an example would be 42% of what number is 157.5. So again, there's is our linking verb to match our A with our percent. And so our A is by itself on one side equation, and R times B, or 0.42 times B, gives us that equation. So now you can see we have to solve through division to get B by itself. And our last type has the percent as the unknown. Find the percent given the base and the amount. So what percent of 92 is 115? So again, is tells us that the 115 is our percent, so it's our A value. And our percent is our unknown, so the R is left as rate. But remember, R represents our rate as decimal. So here, you would need to make sure that you need to turn R into your percent. So whatever you get as a decimal, you need to move that decimal 2 spaces to the right to get your rate in percent form. So let's look at an example. Remember, now we're using R times B equals A as our structure. So find 75% of 56. So again, of tells us it's of the total amount of the B, so we're finding the A value. So 75% R as a decimal is 0.75 times our B times our 56 equals what amount? A. And all we have to do is grab our calculator and type that in there to find our answer of 42. So 42 is our A value. This is asking the same type of question, just different numbers. So go ahead and pause the video and solve this one for yourself. Did you notice your A value of 90 is larger than your B value of 60 because we had over 100%? Let's look at some true-false statements now. First one, in order to solve the equation 0.56 times b equals 12 for the base b, one would multiply 12 by 0.56. So let's look at it. Okay, b has 0.56 being multiplied to it, so we would need to get rid of it by division. So 12 needs to be divided by 0.56, not multiplied. So that one was false. Let's check number 2. In the problem, 126% of 720 is what number? The missing number is the amount. Well, we're doing of the base, so of b is what amount? So is our a, because is links our a value to the percent. So they did get that right. Let's look at the next one. The solution to the problem, 50% of what number is 352, could be found by solving the equation. Again, r times b equals a. So 50 times b is 352. Well, it almost looks set up, but remember, we're taking our percent and turning it into an r rate as a decimal. So we can't just drop the percent sign. We have to move that decimal 2 spaces. So it should be 0.50, not just 50. And last true and false, if the base is 120 and the rate is greater than 100%, then the amount will be greater than 120. So we've mentioned that already. Yes, that is true. The top of our amount, A, will always be bigger than the total amount, B, when our percent is bigger than 100%. So that's, yes, that's true. So how about it? You ready to start using it? So for the next questions, go ahead and set up your R times B equals A, and then solve the equation that you create. So again, don't forget that for 8 and 9, you need to change your rate into a percent by moving that decimal 2 spaces to the right before adding your percent sign to it. So pause the video and work those, and then come back when you're ready and check your answers. All right, here you go. Notice for 5 and 6, you should have been finding the A value. For 7, you should have been finding the V value. 8 and 9, we already mentioned, was the rate. Notice that for 9, there's the percent sign already in there, but I kept it over here so you knew that I had already moved the decimal over to get that percent, even though it says R. So let's apply this to story problems. During his presidency, from 1945 to 1953, Harry S. Truman vetoed 250 congressional bills, and 12 of those vetoes were overridden. So what percent of Truman's vetoes were overridden? So this sounds easy for that. P over 100 equals A over B. But let's use our R times B equals A formula to figure it out. What percent is the question? So our R is going to stay the same. So what percent of the total? So 250 was the total. In algebra, usually when you have 2 multiplied together, it's common to put the number in front of the R. So B times R is the same as R times B. But if you wrote it as R times 250, it's perfectly fine. It just reads better this way. is the amount, is the smaller amount in this case because it's a portion of the 250, so 12. So let's divide to get rid of R, or sorry, to get R by itself, to get rid of the 250. So our rate is the same as 0.048. We good? No, forgot something, didn't we? So it asks what percent. So we need to go ahead and move our decimal and say that that's the same as 4.8%. Don't forget that little extra there at the end that you have to do. More mortgages. The down payment to obtain the best financing rate on a house is 20%. Assuming that John set aside $35,000 and wants to take advantage of the best financing rate, what is the most expensive house he can purchase? So we want to find the total amount that the house can cost, so that would be the total B. And so we're going to do rate of 20% times the total. Oh, I don't have a parenthesis there, do I? Because it's a B. So is the $35,000 that he set aside. So again, 20% is $35,000, so that links the percent with the A value. So we need to divide to get B by itself. And so the base amount, which in this case means the total amount or the value for the house that he can purchase, is $175,000 house. So good luck finding your house, John. Okay, so it's time for you to try and explain things. So first, explain the connection between the proportion P over 100 equals A over B and the equation R times B equals A. So pause the video and jot down some of your thoughts, and then let's compare. So the way I explained it is that P is the whole percent, so it's the number in front of the percent sign, where R is the percent in decimal form. For both equations, A is the amount and B is the base. But if we look at this equation here, P over 100 equals A over B, rate is that same instead of fraction form in decimal form. So we could substitute and say that rate is the same as A over B, which still doesn't look like the second equation, unless we say, let's get rid of this B as a dividing by multiplying both sides by B. And if we do that, we are left with R times B on the left. Here, divide by B and multiply by B cancel each other out. So there, we've just built our second equation from our first equation. Pretty cool, I think. And so for 13, in your own words, explain how to determine which number is the rate, which one is the amount, and which one is the base. So again, pause and jot down your thoughts, and then let's compare notes. So our rate is either given for or asked in percent form. So that's the easy one to determine. The amount is the number that's often near the word is. And the base is often the number that follows the word of. So the percent is something of the total amount. So there's the basics for section 4.6. Good luck on your homework. Any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. Otherwise, I will see you next time.